Hello and welcome to the Live From Rest podcast. And today I'm recording from our new home in London, and it might interest maybe one or two of you to know that we live just literally a few minutes walk from the Arsenal football stadium, the Emirates football stadium in North London. Anyway, today I'm going to share some musings, some thoughts about two tragic deaths and how I believe those tragic deaths point us to God. I'm Steve Smith, your host. I'm the author of the Live From Rest app. In the Live From Rest podcast, we take time to explore the ancient art of being. We host conversations, short talks, and reflections about how we can live from rest in a world full of busyness and distraction. We created the Live From Rest app because we needed it, and we think you might need it too. If you haven't done so already, please make sure that you go to the App Store or to Google Play Store and download it today. So I'm going to share some reflections about two very tragic deaths, which in a way somehow point us to God. But first of all, let me just read to you a couple of verses from Psalm 19. Psalm 19, verse 1 reads, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge." That's the first two verses of Psalm 19. Verse 4, "Their voice, the voice of the heavens, goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world." So the heavens are declaring the glory of God. Creation is speaking about the existence of God and his greatness. So let me start with tragic death number one. Many people listening to this may have loved Dr. Michael Mosley, who tragically died in June of this year, 2024. Michael Mosley was a doctor just a little bit older than me. We would have studied in London at the same time. And he was a well-known TV presenter, and he was on holiday on the Greek island of Symi in June of this year. And Michael went on a walk in really strong heat, 40 degrees Celsius, that's something like 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And sadly, he took a wrong path. And it appears that he didn't have his phone with him, so he was not able to check where he was with his sat-nav, nor was he able to call for help. And sadly, Michael died. He died most probably of heat exhaustion in terribly hot heat. What makes this death almost particularly tragic is that he was agonizingly close to safety when he died. He was only 100 yards from a bar where he could have rehydrated and recovered. And Michael Mosley's had a big impact on many people, including me. Many things that he's encouraged us to do in terms of diet and various daily habits, I take into my life. I go for a walk first thing in the morning because of Michael's encouragement to go for an early morning walk and get a good dose of daylight before you start your day. Anyway, his tragic death reminded me of another death that I heard about when I was on holiday in Wales many years ago. So Wales in Great Britain has a very different climate to that of Greece. And we were staying near a farm where there was a house, and I learnt that the owner of that house, a farmer, had walked into a village one day in the winter. And on the way back from the village, he was hit by a blizzard. And blizzards can be impossible to navigate within because you have such limited visibility. And tragically, this man died between two trees. He obviously gave up trying to find his way and sat down between two trees, and there he died. He froze to death. And again, he was agonizingly close to safety. He was literally yards from his own home, but he couldn't see it, and he died. And I was thinking, there are these two deaths, these two tragic deaths where the individuals were agonizingly close to safety, show that the earth is in such a finely balanced place in terms of its distance from the sun. Wales is 900 miles further north than Greece. Taking into account the curvature of the Earth, it's 4,000 miles further away from the sun. Now, we also need to bear in mind that we're talking about Wales in the winter versus Greece in the summer. So that actually makes a significant difference because the Earth it moves over an axis during the year of about 23 degrees. So that tilt in the Earth, that seasonal variation, means that Wales in the winter is something like 100,000 miles further away from the sun than Greece is in the summer. Yet in that, what might seem at first to be a big distance, but it's a tiny, tiny difference in relation to its in relation to its distance from the sun. The sun is 93 million miles away. That tiny difference is the difference between life being impossible because of extreme heat and life being impossible because of extreme cold. And we live on this earth in a what's known as a habitable zone in relation to our distance, the distance of the earth from the sun. And had the earth been slightly closer to the sun, a little bit further away, life as we know it, sustained by water, which is not frozen or is not evaporated, would otherwise be impossible. And that in itself, I believe, is an incredible pointer to the existence of God. It's the heavens declaring the glory of God. And actually, the reason why I'm giving these reflections today is actually my wife and I were watching a drama last night on the television. We watched a drama that started off in Cairo in Egypt, and we saw the desert surrounding Cairo being so hot that you could not imagine life being sustainable long term in the desert. And then the next scene was in Switzerland on a mountain in the Alps, where it was so cold that life would be unsustainable. And if that was the only evidence for God in terms of the fine-tuning of the universe, of the earth, that would be incredible, but one might argue, well, it's just that we happen to be in this lucky habitable zone. But there are so many other factors that point to God designing our existence. And there are so many things that we could talk about, and I don't want to take too much time, but in addition to the distance from the earth, distance from the sun, I learned recently from a friend who's a physicist that our universe, our planet has something that I'd never heard of before, and it's a magnetosphere. And a certain number of planets have magnetospheres, but our magnetosphere is just of the correct strength that it means that our atmosphere remains constant. If our magnetosphere had been less or non-existent, our atmosphere would have been stripped away from the Earth, as has happened on many other planets. So that's another small thing. A quick interruption to let you know that we're pleased to offer you a free download of a chapter of my wife Lucinda's amazing book. The book is called The Red Thread, and we'd be delighted to give you the really excellent chapter on forgiveness. So to get that, go to livefromrest.com/forgive. That's livefromrest.com/forgive. And if you do go to the resources page of our website, you'll find other free courses and downloads. That's at livefromrest.com, and go to the resources page. And now back to the show. But there are so many more indications of our existence being determined by fine tuning. One is physical constants, and I'm not a physicist, but I am fascinated by the enormous number of physical constants that happen to be just right to mean that life is sustainable. You may well know that electrons are tiny, tiny particles that orbit the nucleus of an atom. And within the nucleus are protons and neutrons, which are much larger than electrons. And the ratio in terms of the size of an electron to a proton, the electron-proton mass ratio is 1 to 1,836. That is to say that a proton is 1,836 times larger than an electron. And this ratio allows atoms to form stable structures necessary for chemistry and biology, and any significant deviation would destabilize atomic and molecular structures, making life impossible. And so that's one of many, many constants that make life possible. Gravity, there's something that's called the gravitational constant, which defines the strength of gravity in our universe. A slight increase in the gravitational constant would have caused the universe to have collapsed, while a slight decrease would have prevented galaxies, stars, and planets from forming. There's the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. That has to be that sort of figure for life to be sustainable, and that's way beyond my understanding. As I say, I'm not a physicist. But there are so many improbabilities, if you like, that when you put them together, the cumulative improbabilities, I believe, overwhelmingly point us to the existence of a creator God, something that we can marvel at. And again, if it was just that might be something that our atheist friends could argue was a matter of chance, a fortunate set of coincidences. But there is so much more. And I'm not going to say too much more, but I do also marvel at what people refer to as the Big Bang, the fact that we now know the universe started something like 13.8 billion years ago, when what now exists was once nothing. And even avowed atheists recognize that there was once nothing in the universe, or at the very least, there was something called singularity, which was infinitesimally small, smaller than an electron, smaller than the smallest virus that you could imagine. That the universe that now is billions of light years in diameter, with enormous stars and everything that we can imagine was once didn't exist. And that reminds us of Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, where we read, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And there's so much more that we could talk about that points us to the existence of God. And I know that to a large degree, I'm preaching to the converted, I'm preaching to the choir, however you want to describe it. But still, I believe there's great value in just marveling at the way God has created our universe. I haven't even begun to talk about the origins of life. I'll just say a couple of quick words, because that also just staggers me. As you may know, life is sustained by molecular structures within every cell called nucleic acids, DNA or RNA. And did you know that the smallest nucleic acid that's capable of life, sustaining life, and that means cell replication and what we call homeostasis, the ability of your cell to sustain its environment, the smallest nucleic acid would still have to have 500,000 nucleotides. Those are subunits of a nucleic acid to be life-sustaining. So the tiny improbability of a nucleic acid forming by chance, and atheists believe that the first nucleic acid would have been an RNA molecule, because we do know that DNA could never have replicated without pre-existing enzymes. So the theory, without God, is that an RNA molecule somehow came into existence. Well, that RNA molecule would probably have had to have consisted of 500,000 nucleotides. But even if it had come into existence by chance, it would almost certainly have decomposed within 4 hours. It's a very unstable molecule. And it wouldn't have been able to replicate without the existence of a cell. So it's all mind-blowing. There's so much more we could talk about. But I've just been wanting to reflect on some of these things to hopefully inspire some of you to marvel at the way that God has revealed himself in and through the universe. And as Psalm 19 verse 1 says, the heavens declare the glory of God. So I hope that you know about our app, Live From Rest, and I hope you will enjoy a number of the meditations that I believe, I know that have helped many people to find closeness and intimacy with God. And there's one particular meditation that's called The Heavens Declare, which reflects on that verse that I've just read, because I find it such an inspiration to reflect on the way that God has revealed himself in and through the universe and through science. So I'm a doctor, I'm a medical doctor. I love science. The basis of my education is scientific. And it sort of amuses me that people sometimes believe that there's a conflict between science and faith, and that absolutely is not the case. My love of science is something that causes me to marvel at God's self-revelation. And that's not even to go anywhere near the revelation of God in history, archaeology, the evidence, when I say history, the evidence for the amazing evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, the amazing evidence that there is through numerous miracles. But anyway, I've said enough. I hope that's encouraged you. And if ever you are tempted to doubt whether or not God is real, just look at the stars, look at the universe, look at the scientific, I would say, impossibility of us being here without design. Thank you again for joining me. I do hope you enjoy these podcasts. Do please rate and share them. And again, please do join us by downloading the app Live From Rest. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Bye for now.